On today's show, we've got dates for the WNBA season, an update on the Brittney Griner situation, and we'll talk about when keeping it real goes wrong with LeBron calling out the media. Lace them up and lock in. JWJ.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're back in the building. Thanks again for listening to the JWJ podcast. It's your boy, James, and I'm here with that shooter on the wing. You already know, Shane. How's it going, bro?
What it do, what it is out there in the radio, TV land, YouTube land.
All that there. It's time to tell. It's time to take over the world, one podcast episode at a time. Again, thank y'all for tuning in. We are not going to waste your time and hold you up. We're going to jump right into it. And you guys know every once in a while what I like to do. I like to put a spotlight. I like to shine a light on the ladies of the game. And that's what we're going to do. First and foremost, Shane, I'm about to take us back. To the beginning of the podcast era for JWJ, and we're going to hit up the Women's Hall of Fame real quick. So let me tell you something. Recently announced were the inductees of the class of 2023 of the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. I'm going to quickly run through them, give a little bit of love about each one, and then I'm gonna let you jump in. You speak your piece, and we'll have our usual back and forth. So, first off, we have Kathy Boswell, who was a member of Gold Medal Team USA from the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles. Following up, Miss Donna Lopiano, CEO of the Women's Sports Foundation from 92 to 07. And she's also been listed as a member of Fox Sports' 10 most powerful women in sports. Next, you might be familiar, maybe not, but Lisa Mattingly is going in as an official. 38-year career, guys. She officiated 10 women's Final Four title games and 7 semifinal games. Also, during her span as an official, she worked from 2000 to 2007 in multiple WNBA championship series and league finals. I purposely saved these two for last, Shane, and I'm sure you'll understand why. And once we're done, our listeners will as well. First off, I gotta go with Miss Carolyn Peck. Now, if you've never heard of Carolyn Peck, she was the head coach at Purdue from 97 to 99 and at the University of Florida from 2002 to 2007. However, the big thing I want to spotlight with her is Carolyn Peck, who actually is an analyst for ESPN now, was the first Black head coach to win the NCAA women's basketball tournament. So big props there. She won the title with Purdue back in 1999. Following up and rounding it out, a lot of people, I'm sure you've heard this name before, and I'm proud to say it. Shane, I'll explain why I'm a little frustrated in a second, but Lindsay Whalen, 4-time WNBA champ, 5-time WNBA All-Star, 3-time first team, 2-time second team. She's led the league in assists 3 times in her career. Like I said, played for 2 teams in the WNBA, played for Connecticut, played for Minnesota. Also actually coaches at the University of Minnesota now. So heck of a career for Lindsay Whalen. I'm not going to get too long-winded about it. I'm gonna let you speak your piece, Shane, but heck of a class we got going in this year, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm still convinced that when we were there back in June that I saw Carolyn Peck there. I feel like I saw her there.
Probably.
She's very unique. Like, everybody looks different, but she's very distinctive in my opinion. So I'm like, I thought she was definitely there. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. Shout out to Chuck.
Chuck.
But that's huge, man. I mean, I have a lot of respect for referees. It's cool that Lisa Mattingly is going in. Anybody that can referee for 30 plus years, I mean, it's not an easy job. I mean, we used to have to do that for our rec league, and we hated it then. So to do that for 38 years, man, that's huge. But
that was awful.
Yeah, it was awful.
I purposely left like right before, like at the end of our games. I would conveniently go to the bathroom for about 10 minutes until I knew that they had found like referees.
You would conveniently go to the bathroom. I would conveniently leave. I would get my car and leave.
For real, man.
Yeah, I would take off.
Mm-hmm.
I think I refed maybe 2 games, and that's because they caught me like before.
That's 2 more than me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny how like people get crazy about refs. Like, I mean, this is a little side tangent, but I mean, there'd be people like, I remember we refereed like a 40 and up game, and dudes like, hope you got what you wanted. I'm like, dude, I don't even know who y'all are. Like y'all are like, you're coming
your
at
friends
me. I mean,
your friends don't even know me.
Yeah, and there's somebody that we know. I'm not gonna mention them by name, but they spent most of our league flopping, and now they're a high school ref. That's all I'm gonna say. If they're listening to this,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But anyway, like, no, I'm really happy to hear that this class is being announced. Shout out to Lindsay Whalen. She's been doing her thing as a coach for a while, and she was a hell of a player. So I'm excited to see them get inducted and them do their thing, because I mean, our first Hall of Fame experience was cool. I'm not sure if we'll get a chance to check this one out, which pisses me off, but yeah.
And that's why I'm annoyed. I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there. So we were able to go, if you guys haven't listened to the earlier episodes of the podcast, I'm not asking anymore. I'm telling you, get back there and listen to them, because we were able to go to the induction this year, which took place in June, right around the time of my boy's birthday. So everything worked out pretty dope for us. This year, I don't know if it's, maybe they're getting back to routine from pre-COVID or whatever. The induction ceremony this year, well, next year rather, is going to be on April 29th. That's right in the heart of major, crunch time for both of us. Again, my boy is over there running the sports section down for the Valdosta Daily Times, and I'm teaching high school English, and that's right around the time for final exams and state testing and all that. So that trip ain't sounding too likely right now, and I'm not too happy about that, man.
Yeah, I mean, it hits, like, for me, that's right in the middle of, like, well, right at the end of like high school baseball season.
Mm-hmm.
And that's college softball and college baseball. And so that's it doesn't seem likely that we'll be able to make that trip.
Disappointed, man.
Hoping low key for like a postponement to where they move it back to June.
I know, right? go back to the same Airbnb. Yo, shout out to that. I mean, I would legit book the same one again, because the sleep there was awesome. I had no windows, dark everything. I slept like a baby.
I would want to go back just to see more of Knoxville. I feel like we didn't get to see the mountains and that kind of thing because we spent 95% of the time sleeping.
And while we're at it, you talking about seeing the mountains, I want to make sure that we actually show up on time so we can see that mountain named Glenn Jacobs. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Political views aside, yeah, it'd be cool to see Kane.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see what goes on with that. And I mean, as time goes, the podcast grows, and we'll keep you guys updated. We'll keep you guys up to speed on that. Quick segue, quick transition. We're still showing some love to the ladies, but I want to go from women's basketball in general to the women's professional league. I want to quickly talk about the WNBA, because we've had some things, go down over the last week or so. On what I think it was Wednesday this week. Yeah, no, November 30th, we had the season schedule was released for the upcoming WNBA season. First thing I want to point out, which I think is really cool, and to me, it shows that the league is, gaining some traction and people are starting to pay a little more attention. For the first time in WNBA history, the season has been expanded to 40 games. So last season it was only 36. Before that, I believe it was only like 32. So it's slowly growing, and I think that's huge for just the forward motion of the WNBA.
Absolutely. And we're in the NBA, they're talking about taking games away. In the WNBA, they're talking about adding games. I'm all for them, adding more games to the schedule. It's more time for us as fans to take in the product. Doesn't hurt to have more games on the schedule to increase that competitiveness that we get a chance to see. So I'm all for the 40 game season.
Mm-hmm. And so just quick overview of the season. There's a few things that I want to point out. So opening night is going to be Friday, May 20th, which is actually, now that I think about it, they're starting about a week earlier. Oh, excuse me. They're starting about a week earlier, because one thing I do always remember about WNBA season, usually opening weekend tends to fall around my birthday, which is right before Memorial Day. So they're starting on May 20th. There will be a slate of 5 games. We're going to have the New York Liberty face off against the Mystics in Washington. We'll have the defending conference champion Connecticut Sun going to Indiana to take on the Indiana Fever, who will have the number 1 pick. Again, congratulations in advance to South Carolina's Aaliyah Boston, but we'll talk about that later. The Chicago Sky are going to go to Minnesota to face the Lynx, and the evening is going to close out with the once again returning Diana Taurasi and the Phoenix Mercury jet setting over to Los Angeles to take on the Sparks. How you feeling about that opening, Shane? Are there any of those games that stand out, or any players in particular that you're looking forward to checking out?
I'm a little shocked that they didn't have the Aces that first night.
Oh, trust me, I got something on that in a second. Yeah.
But no, I'm hyped about all of it. I mean, we get to see Sabrina Ionescu, we get to see her again. Elena Delle Donne. They got, the Indiana Fever, who will have Aaliyah Boston if they know what's good for them.
Absolutely.
Chicago Sky, we got Candace Parker coming back.
Right.
So, that's huge. And then Phoenix Mercury with Diana Taurasi against the Sparks. The Ogwumike's, which I'm big fans of both of them. So
there you go.
I'm excited about those opening night games.
Yeah. So look, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that the Aces aren't playing on opening night. So the Aces are going to open their season the following night on Saturday, the 21st. But here's the wild thing for you, Shane. And I'm not talking Mark Merrill. Look, Mark Merrill, Tone Loc, I told y'all we're here all day with the wrestling jokes. So the Aces are going to open up their season on Saturday, May 21st. They're going to be playing the Seattle Storm, who, if you guys listening, if you recall, they actually had to go through the Seattle Storm to get to the WNBA finals, where they captured that first trophy in franchise history and in the history of the city of Las Vegas when it comes to pro sports. So kudos to you ladies again. I'm going to say it every time we bring it up. You know what the interesting thing is about their opening game, Shane?
Go ahead.
The defending champions are opening their season on the road. Their opening game is in Seattle. And not only that, Shane, their season starts on the 21st. They play Seattle in Seattle. That following Thursday, May 25th, day before my birthday, y'all make sure y'all send me some love. They will be going to Crypto. I told y'all I hate saying that. It slipped. Ugh. They'll be going to Los Angeles to play the Sparks. Shane, the defending WNBA champions do not have a home game until their 3rd game of the season, where they will turn around. It'll be a home and home, and they'll be playing the Sparks, but this time in Vegas. Blows my mind that whoever put this schedule together would do something like that.
All I'm going to say is the rings better be well worth the wait.
Bruh.
Because we saw that All-Star MVP trophy. We saw that. So
that Costco trophy.
These rings better be, Yeah.
Awful, man. Awful. That all-star trophy. Look, I it's so disappointing. I've literally seen that thing on like Etsy. Like it hurts. Gotta put some more effort in if you expect the fan base to grow. Like you got to
Yeah, it
give
was
people.
reminding me of those like Larry O'Brien paperweights that they try to sell you on NBA.com.
Oh, they basically gave the WNBA All-Star MVP like a Pop Warner participation trophy. It's terrible, and I'm still willing to bet that the Pop Warner trophy probably weighed more. It's an embarrassment, and that's got to be improved, and I'm sure it will. Well, I won't even say I'm sure. I'm hopeful that it will improve as time passes. Um, and while we're on, shameless segue, while we're on the concept of improvement and moving forward, we'll actually be seeing some new faces in the WNBA. While when the next season picks up, there will be 5 teams in the league that are actually going to start this season up with new coaches. Um, the Wings will be bringing in Latricia Trammell. The Indiana Fever, along with their number 1 pick, because the team was awful last year. Let's be real, but it's not their fault. I mean, Indiana, if I recall, over half of their team was either first or second year players. They were an incredibly young team, and it was bound to end up the way that it did. So shout out to the process in a way, I guess. But so
Trust the
Indiana,
process.
so in Indiana is going to be welcoming in new head coach Christy Sides. um the Washington Mystics, um former head coach Mike, and here's something funny, Shane. I didn't know his name was actually pronounced like this, but in true journalistic fashion, I did my due diligence and went and found it out. Former Washington Mystics head coach Mike Tebow, Shane. I didn't know it was pronounced like that. I honestly didn't. So Mike Tebow stepped down, and he's being replaced by his son. Eric Tebow is taking in, and if you guys recall, Eric was also, right there in the front, right there at the front line when Washington won their last title. So very familiar face. The team's already familiar. The players are already familiar. The city is already familiar. So that's a good look there. The last 2 that we're going to be looking at, I want to go with the Connecticut Sun first. So we have Stephanie White replacing former head coach Kurt Miller. Kurt Miller, who just led the Sun to the WNBA finals, mind you, stepped down to actually accept the job in Los Angeles. He will now be the head coach of the LA Sparks, replacing Fred Williams, who was serving as interim once the team decided that, Derek Fisher wasn't up to snuff anymore, which I feel like that took longer than it should have. So we've got 5 new coaches this year. I mean, again, I'm excited to see all of them. But how you feeling, Shane? Any of these that you're looking, a little more forward to than the rest?
I'm interested in how the Sparks and the Sun shake out. The Sparks, I feel like they've had a lot of kind of dysfunction there. I mean, Michael Cooper was there forever. And then Derek Fisher comes in, and that's when things started to change. I mean, you had Taya Cooper getting waived, you had Candace Parker leaving. We've had the whole Cam Page situation. Like, there's just been a lot going on there, and hopefully, with Kurt Miller coming in, that'll kind of give them some stability. Anytime you have a team that goes to the finals and then they replace their coach, you always wonder if they're going to be able to keep the pace. So Stephanie White going there with Miller going to LA, I think that's going to be huge to see. Will the Sun be able to kind of keep pace? Changing coaches, changing philosophies, things like that.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, I'm 100% with you. I mean, we can even kind of, even though for a much different reason, we can almost segue and look at that same token at what's been going down for the last month and a half or so in Boston with Joe Mazzulla in the NBA. You had a team that went to the NBA finals, and everybody is familiar now with what was going on with Ime Udoka, but there was a lot of skepticism, a lot of concern when Missoula got bumped up. Of course, we thought it would probably be Hardy, but Hardy took the job in Utah. So Missoula steps in. There was a lot of concern, but so far it's worked out very well. So I mean, I guess the organization can keep their fingers crossed that, maybe they can see something of the same, especially considering their change isn't coming with all of that extra baggage and drama.
Right, right. And I mean, I'd be interested to see just how different it is in Boston with Missoula being the coach rather than Ime Udoka. Like, I wonder, like, okay, is the playbook the same? You still have a lot of the players back. Like, Jason Tatum's a MVP candidate right now, and Boston's playing really well. So I'd love to see, like, in what ways is it different? I mean, obviously, I'm sure Missoula and Udoka have different personalities, maybe different ways of doing things. But I'd love to know, like, to be like inside the trenches and seeing like just how different it is, knowing that it's going from the top of the coaching staff to a guy who was maybe like third in command. So yeah,
right. And I was actually just about to mention that, because that was one of the big concerns going into the season was the fact, like you said, if we look at the WNBA moves, we look at Coach Miller and what's going to be going on there. That's more of a lateral move. Whereas, like you said, with Missoula and Udoka, that's a lot of times if you've played on a team, just like you said, the head coach has their mentality, they have their attitude, they have their expectations, and a lot of times those assistant coaches are almost like the cool guys on the team. It's like if you want to go vent to somebody, or if you're looking for somebody to possibly have your back, like a lot of times it's that assistant coach. So in Missoula's case, that's a really tough position for him, because I have to go from being that guy that would essentially coddle you and let you know, okay, just relax, it'll be cool tomorrow, yada, 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 to the very next day I'm coming into practice and I'm like, if you don't hit that baseline, we got a problem. And I'm supposed to expect these guys to immediately turn and follow suit and do what I say. That could have been a very volatile situation.
yeah, and I mean, and that's before you even think about like where some of these coaches even got like their philosophy and some of their tricks of the trade from. I mean, Ime spent some time with
Coach Pop,
playing for Pop. Like, I mean, he spent some time in Brooklyn even. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things in that situation that you have to look at when you're talking about going from the head coach to a guy that was an assistant getting bumped up. Sometimes, that guy doesn't always get the respect right off. He kind of has to earn it a little more and kind of, but in other cases, if that guy relates to players really well, he may win over the locker room right away. And then,
right.
maybe it's a situation where if something does go wrong, maybe it's X's and O's rather than, relationships with players. But it all starts with the relationship with players.
Agreed. So in like I said, again, in Kurt Miller's case, it's pretty easy. Well, I won't say easy, but that lateral movement does help a lot, because like you said, it's a position that you're already used to. The players understand that you're not new to this. So it kind of helps with the respect aspect there. And I do feel like the transition will be pretty smooth for him. I mean, coming off an appearance in the WNBA finals, I'm like, what coach wouldn't want, what team rather wouldn't want that kind of coach, leading the way? And it's going to be interesting. I'm actually glad that we're going to get to see it right away. We're going to get to see it on opening night, and he'll have a chance to do it at home. I mean, Phoenix will be coming to them. So it's on one hand, it's going to be really interesting to see, but as crazy as it sounds, and another super really random segue that I feel is necessary, Kurt Miller, is going to be making his debut as the coach of the Sparks. We have, Diana Taurasi coming back and, showing that she's still got it. Shout out to, y'all thought I was going to forget. Shout out to one of our best friends. it's going to be really interesting to see all of that. But again, it's going to be very, very disheartening and very disappointing that I don't want to sound so negative, but that opening night is going to come around, and more than likely we're going to see Diana on the floor. But again, we're not going to see um, Phoenix Mercury center Brittney Griner. You guys know we've talked about it quite ad nauseum at this point, but it's not over because it's not over. You hear what I'm saying? So just quickly to touch on Griner's situation a little bit more. So if you haven't been, keeping up, her case has gone to trial. She was found guilty. Her team appealed. The appeal was denied. And now in the latest update, a couple of weeks ago, we found out that she's not even in Moscow anymore. Brittney Griner has been relocated from Moscow to a penal colony in Mordovia, which is over 200 miles away from Moscow, to serve a 9-year sentence for some, what was it, like hash, like some cannabis oil or something. Like it's
That was prescription.
that was prescription, and she had documentation to prove it. I I don't know, man. It's one of those things where I feel like there's so much that can be said, but at the same time, at this point, it's like I don't even know where to start, man. It's just a tough situation, and it's frustrating all around because not only is it, a human being in their life. I mean, granted, it was a mistake, but it was an honest mistake, and it just so happened that it occurred at a time when there's already these, there's political hostility over there. There's literally a war going on right now, and of course, the United States is going to be involved whether they want to or not because of their previous relationships with Ukraine. So it's just all of these things going around. And I'm still convinced that the reason all of this is happening the way that it is because Russia wants to prove a point. And it just seems really frustrating and really disheartening that it has to come to this on behalf of Brittney.
Yeah, and I mean it's tough. I mean, we talked about it like you said ad nauseum. I mean, you've got obviously every country has different laws, things like that. We're not saying that she should be above the law. We're not saying that. What we're saying is it's like you're all saying, okay, she's smuggling drugs into the country. Like, and it was more so, okay, this is something that she's been prescribed to help with pain. As somebody that's played basketball half my life,
Right.
yeah, we deal with pain every day. So, I feel like, that's one of those things that you'd like to see her get a special provision. Things are a little dicey with that. But this is somebody's wife. This is somebody's daughter. This is somebody that has teammates that have played with her for years, that care about her and love her. So it's like you said, it's a very disheartening, very disappointing situation. Hopefully, as this whole situation with Russia, the US, the war, Ukraine, everything going on, hopefully, something can happen to where, maybe she doesn't have to spend 9 years over there. Maybe she can be allowed to come back stateside, as part of maybe some deal where she's released as part of some type of other move or something like that. It's a shame we have to talk about it like that, but that's kind of what we have to deal with right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's hopefully we'll get some kind of good news sooner than later. I mean, it's painful for fans, and we're not even directly involved in the situation. So I can only imagine what it's like you said, for Brittney, for her wife, for the teammates who have, grown to love Brittney. Like that's their family, essentially. They spend so much time together that Brittney is a sister to them. Like
Yeah, and
that's
it's bigger than ball. Like, I mean,
yeah.
it's not even about her coming back and returning to the Mercury. It's about her safety first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's what's most important. As fans, it would be cool to see her come back and be able to rejoin her team and play. But at the same time, like her safety and well-being is important as well. And I mean, it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah. And another thing that I want to point out, and it actually help a lot to take us right into the next topic that I want to discuss, is just how big of a deal the WNBA and even the NBA has made this issue. You have players all over the league that they'll go to press conferences and they'll make it a point to bring Brittney up. All of last season, the Mercury players, the Mercury staff, everybody was wearing, BG 42 shirts, and they even put her, number and everything on the court. Like, the All-Star game this past season, remember the second half of the game, everybody came out wearing jerseys with the number 42 on them.
Yeah.
They're doing everything they can to bring this awareness, and even transitioning over to the NBA. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure you remember opening night when right before the Golden State Warriors raised their banner and received their rings, which cough cough WNBA, that's what you're supposed to do with your defending champion on opening night. They even Steph Curry came out, and while he's thanking the fans, while he's thanking their staff and their front office and all of their other employees, he also made it a point to bring up Brittney Griner. He said, don't think we forgot about you. Like, so it's a really big deal that it's still being discussed everywhere, because I think fans, I think the media, I think everybody pays attention to the fact that people are paying attention, which indirectly but somewhat directly leads me to the next thing that I want to discuss with you, Shane. And I'm very sure you already know where this is going.
Oh yeah.
So right before Thanksgiving, there was an article written in the Washington Post, and this article was addressing the idea of, discrimination and hiring practices, specifically in relation to Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys. And in conjunction with this article being released, there's also now an old photo that is being heavily circulated. In this photo, you see a group of white men on, I don't know if you recall the exact school. I know it was in Arkansas, but
Yeah, it was North Little Rock.
North Little Rock. Cool, appreciate it. So you've got these white men trying to, it effectively looks like they're trying to, in ways, prevent the integration of a group of black men trying to enter the school. We come to find out that one of the men that's in the photo, one of the white men, is a young Jerry Jones. Now, we don't know, and I will say this, I mean, I do think it's fair to say, we don't know if Jerry was actively there trying to help keep these men out. We don't know if he was there as a spectator. We don't know what the situation was, but one thing that we can say, because normally it applies to a lot of other walks of life, it doesn't look very well.
The
so
optics.
You're right. You're right. So
that's a popular thing now. The optics
right.
aren't good.
Right. So it doesn't look good. So there's all these questions swirling around, but I say all that to say this. After what was it, after the Portland game or the Milwaukee game? It was Portland. It was Portland.
Portland, yeah.
So after the Lakers beat Portland, and yes, I got to point that out because everybody wants to try to talk about how, all of our wins have been cakewalks so far. Like, yeah, we won a couple over the Spurs and, the Pistons, and so what? But make sure y'all pay attention to the fact that my Lakers also beat Milwaukee in Milwaukee.
Ask Milwaukee how that cake tastes.
Yeah, and make sure you ask Chris Middleton, who just came back to play as well. So I don't want to hear anything about them not being at full strength, because guess what? My Lakers aren't either. But anyway, so after the win against Portland last week, LeBron is going through, his post-game presser and everything. And before he leaves, he has some stuff to get off his chest. Long story short, LeBron looks at the, LA media and poses a question. He wants to know why nobody in the room has taken the opportunity to ask him any questions about the Jerry Jones photo situation. And at first it might seem like it's a little, random. Like it just seems like a really strange time to pose the question. But then LeBron goes into more detail. Specifically, he says, all of this stuff going on with Jerry Jones, you don't ask my opinion. However, as soon as Kyrie's name is in the news, for some reason, you always think it's relevant to ask me. And he goes on to point out the fact that he believes there's an inequality in representation of situations such as these two in the media. He explains that he feels like, the Jerry Jones thing isn't really getting the coverage that Kyrie's situation was. And he's not just saying in relation to the NBA, because of course, why would the NBA talk about Jerry Jones? But he's even pointing out just the media and, sports media as a whole. He feels like it's not being discussed as much, and it raised some eyebrows because I feel like there was a very, very large amount, just from what I was hearing on NBA radio. There were a lot of analysts, a lot of reporters, just, a lot of employees, period, that seemed to be in unison with the opinion that LeBron was out of pocket for even bringing this up. They took it as if LeBron was being selfish, the typical LeBron complaint. They felt like he was trying to make the whole situation about himself, and it just seemed very, very off-putting. But I don't want to ramble. We can definitely, have a discussion on this, Shane. But what have you gotten from this whole situation so far?
No, I think it's fair. We've seen it both ways. We've seen LeBron speak out about the Kaepernick situation. We had him speak out about a lot of different social issues in our country that involve race, things like that. We've seen him speak out about things that he wasn't completely well informed about, like the
China.
whole, China relationship, things like that.
Yeah.
So, that, I guess that's one of the parts about being somebody that, wants to be looked at, as somebody that has done something in the activist vein as far as social issues in our country, social issues as it pertains to sports. So, I think he's right on this one. I think, if it was when it was the Kyrie situation, they want to know what LeBron thinks. Now it's cool that people, the media wants to know what the face of the league thinks of these things. I think also it's fair because LeBron is well publicized as a fan of the Dallas Cowboys. So
do you remember? Do you remember he actually went through the whole thing? I want to say it was within the last couple of years or so, but there was actually he actually came out and pretty much said that he's not really a fan anymore. And a lot of it had to do with this situation, not the photo situation, but the whole idea that Jerry Jones, there's the potential of discrimination in the front office and things of that nature, which going to that, you and I talked about it right before we started recording. What did we figure out? That Dallas is one of the 6 teams in the NFL that has never hired a full-time head coach or general manager of color.
Right.
32 teams. There's only 6 of them. And Dallas is one of them. So while I think because of that, that's what led LeBron to say, I'll have to find the article and send it to you. But I feel like he pretty much came out and said, I can't really vibe with Dallas anymore. But even then, like you said, if you know that the face of the NBA at one time was a big Dallas fan and all of a sudden he's not anymore, honestly, even if I'm a journalist covering the NBA, I'd still find a way to slip a question about that in there at some point.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Jerry Jones has already come out. I see here in the Yahoo Sports article, he came out in praise of LeBron when somebody asked him about his response to it. Jones said, "First of all, you have to hear me say how much I think of LeBron. I don't know of anybody that I respect more. I don't know of anybody that has taken every opportunity he's had and maximized it. Not only has he been a great ambassador for sport, he has taken sports, he has taken his venues and used those platforms." He goes on to say, "I want to be sure that you know where I'm coming from. It made buttons pop off my vest, so to speak, when he would talk about how much of a Cowboy fan he was. He would have made a great tight end. That doesn't change.
Listen,
There's nothing about any of that that changes." And I did hear what he had to say. Certainly, he has influence. And just because of all of the above, his accomplishments, how he's utilized his sport and how he's utilized his platform, how we have done it, he has enhanced basketball. He's made a lot of people a lot of money. I hope I have too. And I think with that, Jerry Jones he's been a very public person. He's the only owner in the NFL that I know of that does a weekly radio show in Dallas.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about Mark Cuban being visible and all that. Jerry Jones is the most visible owner in sports.
Agreed.
He's out in the forefront of a lot of things, and this is something that he hasn't, to his credit, he hasn't shied away from. Granted, he's 80 and he was 14 in this photo. Now,
listen,
I think it's important here that we keep it in the context of all we have is a photo. We weren't there. We don't have there's no documentation of anything that was done that Jerry Jones was involved in, as far as the lack of integration or those type of things at North Little Rock High School at that time. So all we have is a photo. Picture's worth 1,000 words. We don't know. In that picture, Jerry Jones doesn't look hostile at all. He just kind of looks like he's just in the melee. We don't know. Now, granted, like I said, it was nearly 65 years ago. I mean, Jerry Jones, the guy that has made a lot of money, and built the brand of the Dallas Cowboys. And I mean, it's a sport that is majority Black. And that's part of the issue, as far as, where the Washington Post is taking this angle, as far as how come there have never been any Black head coaches of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Jerry Jones goes on to say, he's talked about how relationships are important, but we also have the Rooney Rule in place, that says that, minority candidates should at least be interviewed in this process. We've seen some things come up about that process. Look at the whole Brian Flores situation with the Miami Dolphins, his lawsuit against the Dolphins in the NFL or whatever. There's a lot to unpack with that, but this isn't an NFL podcast. So speaking of that, if you guys are still listening to us, if you can find us on YouTube, you can subscribe to us on there, like our video when this comes out, click that notification bell so you'll be notified whenever we post a new episode. So with that being said, James, man, I think LeBron is right to call out the media with that, because there's a lot of like blind spots that have come out with different issues over the last few months. We had the Kyrie situation about the anti-Semitic movie link that he shared that became this firestorm in the midst of the whole Kanye losing his damn mind. But anyway,
and I have a question though. I want to get your opinion on something real quick.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm gonna find a really long-winded way to ask you if you feel like there is a difference in coverage, and if that difference is race-based. I'm gonna give you an example real quick. So we have the whole Kyrie situation with the anti-Semitism and all of that, which, for what it's worth, and I've said this from day one, and I feel like you've totally agreed, I don't know the guy personally, but I can also say I don't think well, I won't even say I don't think there's been nothing that I've seen as a fan that would give me the impression that Kyrie is anti-Semitic. But on that same token, I even said before, the one thing that I feel that Kyrie did that put his own foot in the fire, it's okay. In my opinion, it's okay to post this video if you feel like it's something that is worth watching. Where Kyrie first messed up is simply when people asked him to talk about it, he refused. And that's where things started to go south.
Right.
But what I want to the reason I bring up Kyrie is because I want to immediately make a transition to to what went on with Myers Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
And for if y'all aren't aware, a few years ago, Myers Leonard was playing a video game online. He was streaming on Twitch, and at one point he uses an anti-Semitic derogatory term while he's playing this video game. Of course, it gets recorded, it gets sent all over the world. Next thing you know, Myers Leonard has not been in the NBA since. Key differences in those situations. One, once Myers Leonard, once everything came to light, the first thing he did was issue a public apology. He immediately comes out and says, I was wrong. I shouldn't use, terms like that and yada, yada, yada. Bottom line, he doesn't make any excuses. He just says, I shouldn't have done it. I was wrong. Kyrie, nobody even asked him for an immediate apology. They asked for an explanation and he wouldn't give one. That's when things started to get worse. Kyrie gets hit with this laundry list of, oh, you're going to do all these things before we're going to let you play again. Myers Leonard doesn't even get that chance. So I think another thing that needs to be pointed out as well is a lot of this. I do think there can be a racial aspect pulled from it, but there's also a talent aspect. If Kyrie was not arguably one of, if not the best point guards in the NBA right now, where do you think he would be for this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that kind of goes with what we were talking about with LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
People want to know what LeBron thinks because this is what he's a billionaire.
Right.
He's the first billionaire in the NBA.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
It's like he's a big damn deal. All right. So like if this is, I don't know, if this is Theo Pinson for the Dallas Mavericks, it'd be easy for them to just kind of brush it off. In this case, it was Myers Leonard. It's like, okay, well, you're kind of a bit player on our team, and you say this craziness that showed some insensitivity. It's easy, especially in Pat Riley's case. Pat Riley's probably like, look, I don't like that this is happening anyway. All right, bye. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. I think that's one reason that I think Kyrie got hit with the stuff he got hit with is because he's so visible and because he's so talented. If he was just another guy, I think it's easier for you to kind of sweep it under the rug or do something that's not as publicized.
Do you feel like the reinstatement list that was given to Kyrie was fair?
I think it was fair, kind of. I think because we talked about it when it first came out, not on the podcast. We talked about it personally.
Yeah,
I thought it was a little excessive because I feel like it was kind of being dragged on. It's like, okay, it's like he kind of got bullied a little bit. There was a lot of stuff he brought on himself.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this kind of goes back to a few years ago where like, him, I think even KD, they were like, we shouldn't have to, we don't really owe you anything as far as the media. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think Kyrie kind of took that bullishness, and that's what kind of led to a lot of stuff being started is because, he could post that the same way as I share something, right? Like if I was to share something on my Twitter, whatever. But it's like, I think with Kyrie, he did it. And all of a sudden people are like questioning him about it. And in his mind, he's like, I don't owe you anything. I don't have to
Right.
answer that. And
Right.
it became, okay, like a lot of people are starting to press this now. And
Mm-hmm.
then, it becomes, oh, he's anti-Semitic. He's this and this. He's he's an outsider. I mean, granted,
Mm-hmm.
Kyrie can be a weird dude. The whole earth is flat deal, whatever. Like Kyrie's just a different dude. And there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with that. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the whole, okay, he did issue somewhat of an apology. He ended up doing more things later, obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought the whole, he had to complete all these side quests before, he could come back and all that. And I thought it was a little excessive. I thought he was
Mm-hmm.
I felt like he was kind of being kind of dragged a little bit with that.
Yeah.
I thought it
I
was
mean,
kind of being dragged, but yeah.
I feel like and just pretty much just to echo, like you said, what like my side of it was when we first started talking about it. Do I think it was excessive? I think it depends on which side you're looking from, to be honest. Because like the same thing I said, I mean, it's like I don't think it's necessarily being done with an intent to drag Kyrie. I think it's being done because it's unprecedented.
Right.
So if you're Joe Tsai, if you're Brooklyn, you're looking at this whole thing like let's just say hypothetically, Kyrie posts it, um, somebody asks him about it, and let's just say he immediately comes out right then and he gives all the reasons why he thinks this is a valuable documentary. He's like, oh, it talks about the history of this, and it talks about this and this and that, and everything he says is both positive and true. We probably wouldn't even have this going on. Now, I'm not saying that to say that this is all Kyrie's fault. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I think that Kyrie's silence also led to a lot of problems with the Brooklyn Nets that aren't being taken into consideration. Like a lot of these other outside forces, like the Anti-Defamation League, all of those other, New York City, Brooklyn in particular, there is a heavy Jewish population. And I think if one of your star players is leaving things up to interpretation, there's no control over where that interpretation goes. So I think that Brooklyn, while it may seem excessive in a way, I think that they're doing that not to punish Kyrie, but to save their own face, because they don't want to do anything to alienate their fan base. Because let's look at it like this. Let's say that the team did absolutely nothing to Kyrie. They brought him back the very next day. They never suspend him. They never do anything. And then at the end of this season, Kyrie walks. You think the Jewish fan base in Brooklyn is immediately going to be like, oh, well, he's gone now, so we cool? I think
No.
Brooklyn had to think about it like that. And I think that's why they did what they did, because at the end of the day, it is a business. And
Right.
you have to think, like I said, we always talk about player empowerment. At the end of this season, Kyrie has all the right in the world to go do whatever he wants. He decides to leave and go to another team. That's well within his right. Nothing wrong with that. That's what players should be allowed to do.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that his decision over that post can't have ramifications beyond Joe Tsai's control. So I think that's why they did what they had to do, because they want to show their fan base, we're not going to stand for this either, whether Kyrie's here or not.
Right. And I think it's important, as journalists, our whole deal is to be the fourth estate and to
Mm-hmm.
hold people in power accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's athletes, whether it's politicians, city council, whoever. The job of the media is to kind of keep those people honest. I think in our world, a lot of we see a lot of perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
And with Kyrie being silent on some of the stuff about the anti-Semitism, silence is being looked at him being complicit in the situation.
Silence is
And
magnified.
yeah, they kind of needed, it was one of those deals where he kind of needed to provide some context to that. And I think a lot of people, you know, even though it was one of those hot button deals and it felt like they were coming after Kyrie, there was a lot that he could have said to kind of massage that a little bit and not have it turn into what it turned into.
And it's one of those things. It's one of those things like we're looking at a league now, like I said, going back to the whole idea of player empowerment, we're looking at a league where, you know, the most offensive thing that possibly goes on right now is players feeling like they're being told to just shut up and dribble. Right. Now, I fully respect that. The players should be allowed to speak their mind. You're not just an athlete. You are a face of an entire league. You're a face of, you know, an entire race, a culture, a country, wherever you come from. So you represent so many more people than you know. Now, does that mean that he's absolutely obligated to explain himself 100% of the time? Hell no. He doesn't have to do that. But just like you said, it's the type of thing where the players are constantly fighting for the right to be heard. And just like you said, this was a prime opportunity for Kyrie to use his platform to not only explain, but to inform and educate. He could have opened so many eyes, so many minds, because a lot of people think that Kyrie is just this quirky off the wall type dude. Kyrie is not dumb. He's not stupid. So this could have been such an opportunity for him to be like, look, this is what I believe. This is why I believe it, blah, blah, blah. And even if somebody comes out and says, remember what I was telling you before, I think somebody said the documentary is like close to 3 hours long. So there was even talk on NBA radio where they were like, I'm wondering if Kyrie even watched the whole thing. And that's my opinion on it. I think that part of the reason that Kyrie didn't want to talk about it is because he probably didn't watch the whole thing. So there's probably, in my mind at least, the idea that maybe there was something offensive in it. It could have possibly been in a part that Kyrie didn't watch. So then it turns out they're like, oh, can you explain this? Can you explain this? Can you explain that? And he couldn't because maybe he didn't see it. But then rather than come out, you know what I'm saying? Like,
he got defensive, and immediately that kind of poured some fuel on it. Because I mean, it makes you think now, and this is completely like off to the side, but we have Instagram, and we have our own like personal profiles, right? So like, I wonder how many things that we've like blindly liked just because like some chick posted something, or you know what I'm saying? Like some woman gets on there.
Ooh, she's cute. Double tap.
Yeah, she could have been in a video. I'll say it right here. I'm guilty. I have liked so many things on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Some of this stuff be videos. I don't know. We could have been liking some stuff where somebody was saying some real nasty stuff.
Yeah,
both nasty in crazy ways, and nasty as in like something offensive. We don't know.
But then you turn around and like it. You know why? Because they're twerking for Wemby.
Yep. War machine for Wemby. It is in full effect. We talked about it last episode. If you haven't heard that, you know where to find us. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast. If you follow us on Instagram, you follow us on Twitter, go to our bio. We have a link tree with all of our outlets and platforms that we post our podcast to. So thank you for supporting the JWJ podcast. Now, that being said, I want to make one more point about the LeBron thing, and then we'll move on. But I think it's important in this situation that LeBron calling this out isn't him going at Jerry Jones. Right. It's him calling out a potential
disparity
disparity or hypocrisy in the media that, you know, because we saw this around the time that the Kyrie thing came out. It's publicized now that the whole stuff down in Mississippi, Southern Miss with Brett Favre.
Oh yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I almost forgot.
You know, the thing basically asking the state or the governor, whoever, for funds that
For
would have
what was it,
went
like
and
like a stadium or like a
yeah,
practice
to
stadium or
fund like a new like arena or something at Southern
at
Miss.
his daughter? Yeah.
And this is money that is like welfare funds for
And it's one of the poorest regions in the country.
yeah, Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the union. And
Mm.
so that was kind of put on the back burner. Nobody really came out and nobody talked about that as visibly as we heard the Kyrie stuff.
They even
The
pulled
Jerry Jones thing.
They even pulled a text from Brett Favre where he asks, "We're not going to get in trouble for this, are we?"
Right. And see,
so he knows he's doing something wrong.
Yeah, and now this is where what we talked about a minute ago becomes crazy about like star power, name recognition, that kind of thing. Myers Leonard versus Kyrie. You got an all-star versus a guy that is just happy to be there. You got Brett Favre, one of the greatest quarterbacks, one of the most loved athletes in NFL history.
Wrangler.
You got Wrangler. You got,
what was it? Was the copper with the copper thing?
Yeah, copper fit, the elbow sleeves.
Fit.
Like Brett Favre is Brett Favre, and
it's very much worth pointing out, and we'll make the comparison, just like you said, Kyrie and Myers Leonard. Yep. Here's a big one, and we'll I'm not even going to keep it as contemporary as Colin Kaepernick. I'm going to say we're ignoring everything right now about Brett Favre, and you still have people on social media that are destroying Michael Vick.
Yeah. And now this is where it's like, okay, you got, and we're like, this isn't an NBA issue, but this is a media thing. So follow me on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Vick, the whole dogfighting deal. It's like this man did his time.
Mm-hmm.
And
admitted his wrongdoing,
admitted his wrongs. He did everything he needed to do,
and he's rectified it by working with the ASPCA, by all of this. He's going out of his way to prove what he did was wrong, and that's not even the big thing. Not only is he admitting what he did was wrong, he has spent over the last decade plus showing you that he wants to do better.
Right. And my thing is, if he's going to be vilified and people are still going to be talking about that now, and people still feel a way about Michael Vick now, I need people to kind of keep that same energy, because this whole Brett Favre situation is literally funds that are used for the welfare of the citizens of that state that are being used for basically improper use. Really, you're asking to take money from the poor to support the poor, to fund, something with a university just because you went there.
And there's
something wrong with that.
Dare I say we go look at the demographics of that area
and see, this is what I'm saying. It's like, okay, the Michael Vick thing was visible, right? Mm-hmm. This Brett Favre thing is a big deal. Let's not take that silence that we're getting from the media. That almost feels complicit in a way.
And to be and to be very clear for everybody listening, this conversation again is in no way us condoning anything that Michael Vick did. We are both sitting here saying that man was 100% wrong for what he did. But the big difference, he's gone to prison. He did his time. And since he has come out of prison, he has intentionally done things to try to rectify the wrongs that he's caused.
Yeah. And see, and this is, speaking of the past, going back to the Jerry Jones thing, like, yeah, he was in that photo. He was 14 years old. Jerry Jones is 80 now.
Right. People grow, people change.
And this is what I'm saying. It's like LeBron calling people out on this. He's not calling out Jerry Jones. He's calling out the media.
Right.
Asking them to keep the same energy that they kept for Kyrie, that they haven't shown the Brett Favre situation. It's like they pick and choose who they want to put out in the forefront and who they want to castrate publicly.
Right.
I think LeBron was right to do that, because the media's job is to hold people accountable. I think LeBron did a good thing by calling the media out as to, okay, we need y'all to keep that same energy. If you're going to go at Kyrie like this, we need you to do the Brett Favre stuff like this. We need you to do the Jerry Jones stuff like this. And we talked about before we came on about the Kyrie vaccination issue. we saw Aaron Rodgers blatantly lie about his vaccination status. That wasn't as big of a deal as the whole Kyrie not getting vaccinated. That seemed to be talked about a lot more as well.
And even if people are getting tired of just hearing us cross over to the NFL, the whole time that everybody is riding Kyrie's coattails about his vaccination status, did y'all realize that for over half of that same season, Andrew Wiggins wasn't vaccinated either? No, you didn't, because it wasn't being brought up. The media, just like you said, the media is picking and choosing.
Yeah. And I mean, and Andrew Wiggins was put in a spot. He's like, well, either I get vaccinated or I don't play. Right. So eventually he got vaccinated.
Right.
But,
and now he's still a champion.
Yeah.
We got a new champion.
Yeah. And so, like, in the Kyrie situation, it's like, okay, like, look at, I mean, Kyrie's no different than tennis. Novak Djokovic. They told him he couldn't play.
Yep.
He couldn't play at Grand Slams.
Example.
He couldn't go to the Australian Open, defend his title.
Good example.
They did weird stuff at Wimbledon where they said basically people's points wouldn't count toward their ranking if they played this event, but they let Djokovic was able to play and win Wimbledon.
Wimbledon almost sounds like Wembanyama.
Yeah. War Machine. Working for Wemby, trade your mama for Wembanyama.
Look, every time
we talked about all that.
Look, super random. So, every time you say twerking for Wemby, the first thing that comes to my mind is the gif of Tina from Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. Yeah. Tina twerking for Wemby. So,
oh God.
By the way, if when this comes out, you are listening to this on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, email us at the jwjpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know if you want to see special edition War Machine for Wemby merch. If you want to see Trade Your Mama for Wembanyama merch.
Absolutely.
If you want a JWJ hoodie. If you want to weigh in on anything we've talked about in this podcast, hit us up, the jwjpodcast@gmail.com.
Now, and I gotta say, while you talking about JWJ hoodies, man, I gotta shout out that #1 fan up there in the Midwest. You know who you are. I love you, bro.
One of our biggest supporters, our guy John McMillan. Shout out to you, dude.
Yes,
Thank you for being a great friend to us. Thank you for being one of our strongest supporters, man. We appreciate you.
Day one.
Yeah, man. So, but yeah, last thing I want to say on that, like we've kind of belabored that point a little bit, but I think LeBron was right. He's not calling out Jerry Jones for doing anything improper. He's just saying, look, I need y'all to keep that same energy with these situations because, some people are being kind of exposed and other people are being underexposed, not exposed at all in some cases with some of the stuff they've done. The Kyrie thing was front page, seemed like on all these sports outlets, but the Brett Favre stuff hasn't. So kudos to LeBron for understanding that his platform is important and people want to know what he thinks. But he's also saying, like, look, like, I'm also going to call y'all out too. So that I think that was good on LeBron for doing that. And
definitely.
Like anything could come from this Jerry Jones thing. He hasn't run from it, to his credit. But yeah, that's pretty much what LeBron wanted to do. And sometimes, keeping it real, like we mentioned earlier.
He hasn't. Yeah, Jerry hasn't run from it like he did from the whole, paternity suit thing. But I'm sorry, keep going. We're not going to bring up another thing that wasn't.
Yeah, we'll let other people talk about that because this is After All the Hoops podcast. And LeBron did good to call out the media for what they did. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you have made it this far, thank you for making JWJ a part of your day. If you're not already, make sure you follow us, like, and subscribe on YouTube. We also can be found on almost every platform, including Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more. We also can be found on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can follow us at the JWJ Podcast. You can also follow us individually. You can follow me at It's a Thomas Thing. And you can follow James at Titletown's Mayor. If you have any questions or would like to add your 2 cents to our episodes, shoot us an email, like I mentioned before, at the JWJ podcast at gmail.com for the chance to be included in a future episode. So with that being said, until next time, thanks again for your support. And thank you for tuning in to JWJ.
We out, baby.
See y'all tomorrow.